Coming up on By the Book, join host Dorothy Spalding and today's leading authors with in-depth interviews, stories, and discussions, offering unique insight into the authors, their influences, and their latest works. Tune in today as Dorothy welcomes Ken Cooper. Be sure to watch By the Book.
The book? It's great.
How did you do it?
By the Book.
Where did you find that?
Did you see By the Book?
Yeah, it's a great show. By the Book.
New releases and authors?
I thought it was a great read.
I think I'm going to buy the book.
It's the best.
Did you get it?
You should.
Do it by the book.
The best authors.
New releases.
Let's watch.
By the Book.
Welcome to By the Book. I am your host, Dorothy Spalding, and today we're going to be talking to an ex-bank robber. Ex-bank robber.
Well, I'm so glad you said ex.
Yeah, because
I'm
you told
generally
me.
introduced as the bank robber.
But you told me you're no longer a bank robber.
Exactly.
So I made you an ex-bank robber.
Thank you. Since Christ came into my heart, I don't even look at banks.
You don't? Tell me, I want to know your life. What led to you to being a bank robber, like Jesse James or?
Well, you said a key word that amazes me. You're the first person to interview me that has mentioned Jesse James, but one of my uncles was a descendant of Jesse James, and I wanted to follow him. I wanted to follow him instead of my grandpa, who was a preacher, and my mother, who was a Christian. I chose to be the bad boy.
The choices we make as young people.
That's right.
So tell me some of the things that you did. Like, you did this when you were a teenager, when you were growing up. I mean,
Right.
when did you first decide to be
Well,
like Jesse James?
Yeah, let me tell you about what I think is a predisposing cause. And I know I sound like a college professor instead of a bank robber, but one of the causes, I believe, was that I was born in Camp Number 2 in a coal camp in southern West Virginia. Very demeaning. You know, when you try to tell people, well, where were you born? You can't say coal camp number 2.
Why?
Because everyone wants a town.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
so you could give a county, but that was it. And I don't know if you remember Tennessee Ernie Ford's song, 16 Tons.
Yeah, I never.
Well, my father owed his soul to the company store. My grandfather did, my uncle did. All my heroes were slaves, working in those mines, killing themselves. So I grew up to hate the establishment. So I was robbing from the establishment. Was part of my rationalization. The bankers.
The bankers.
That own the coal companies.
So you decide to go out one day and I'm just going to do this thing? Did you have a gang of people with you or just you sole single? Always
alone. My wife and my father had died 3 months apart. And I was fighting depression, didn't know to grieve. I shook my fist at God at the graveside of my father and told God to go to hell. And so I took some giant steps into darkness along the way. And so when I was in that state, it occurred to me I could shock myself out of the depression by doing something really exciting. Adrenaline. I'd always loved the adrenaline surge. And that's why I did the joyriding and the other thievery that I did.
So what do you mean by the joyriding?
That's stealing a car that you don't intend to keep.
You just
and
steal
just
it?
steal it and ride it around. Make sure it's not harmed. That was my objective. And I'd try to get the nicest ones possible.
Just
steal.
for the thrill of doing it.
I celebrated my admission to the University of Arizona by doing that all day. So I was a mixed up, crazy kid, did well in school, but lived a double life all my life.
So people never knew that you would be this man?
No. People were so shocked. I became director of publicity at a Christian college. God prospered me despite. This was after I'd been robbing banks for about 5 years, that I became director of publicity
Why
at
did
Christian
you want
college.
to do that?
Well,
when you're robbing banks, you don't really have to do that, do you?
No, but I I love children, and I was supporting the children of Appalachia, and I came out of Appalachia.
Oh, so
And
you would
so-
send money that you robbed to those children?
No,
Oh.
no, I promoted the college
Oh, okay.
that helped those kids with free tuition. And so I went to work for them, I think in effect to help myself when I was a poor child.
Uh-huh.
But I did it to the other mountain kids.
So here we are. How do you think about robbing a bank? You sit and you check the bank out, you figure out what you're going to do.
Well,
Wear a mask,
while I was
what do you
working
do?
at Cumberland College, I was traveling throughout the eastern U.S., and then when I was director of advertising for the state of Kentucky, I had an office in Europe, so I was traveling, and I didn't rob banks in Europe. I never did go there. But I would, on one of the business trips, I would just kind of check out the mark, as it's called. I would go in and case it and determine whether or not that was a bank that I'd want to come back and visit to plan the robbery. And so I enjoyed the planning. I enjoyed the robbing very much. But of course, there was never any peace in it.
You enjoyed it because of the hype,
Well,
the thrill of,
the adrenaline surge, I was Superman.
yeah.
That was my stage.
Well, how did you dress?
Generally as a gentleman. And so you probably read about me. I'm not sure where you're from, but
Well,
North Georgia?
no, I was from Florida and
Okay.
from Indiana and Michigan.
Well, you undoubtedly read about me as a gentleman bank robber, because sometimes I'd even wear a tux. But I would always dress up. Well, not always. A few times I dressed like a hillbilly, but and talk like this.
And so, two disguises. What
Yeah,
about
or
your
whatever
face?
part I was playing.
And what about your face?
I was shot leaving a bank by a Christian officer on July 26, 1982. I received an email a few weeks ago from him saying, "I'm glad I was a Christian. I'd have pulled the trigger twice." And I wrote back and said, I'm really glad.
Yeah.
I'm really glad you didn't pull the trigger, because I'd have been in hell. That got my attention. On the way to the hospital, I said, I'll never rob another bank. And Dorothy, the thing is, once I started making one good choice and decisions, others followed on that. And
So that was your
within-
last time.
Yeah, and within 2 months of being in jail, I was in the medical ward in the jail after the hospital. And there I gave my life to Christ. And I cried out for Jesus to wash me in his blood, the thing I'd made fun of for all those years. Even while working at a Christian college, I ridiculed the blood. So he washed me. I rose up a new man. You know, the old things are passed away, all things are become new. That was literally true.
How many years were you a bank robber?
13.
13 years. And then some of the experiences of when you were robbing banks, any chases, anything like that?
Well, I had one of the tellers chase me. In effect, she wanted to go with me.
Oh, she chased you because you were a gentleman bank robber?
I suppose, and she said, I've never had anything so exciting. I was leaving in her vehicle, and she had a sporty little car, just as sporty as she was. And I was very tempted, but I knew she was crazier than I was.
So you were married at this time?
No, ma'am.
Oh, okay. So she wanted to go with you. Isn't that funny how people are? I mean, we've got people that write to murderers and they want to be married to them, want to have their children. I don't understand that thought.
I don't either. She scared me,
Yeah, so you
even
were
as sick as I was.
smart to dump that and not let her come along. It says Ken Cooper held hostage. How were you held hostage?
Well, first, and I'm glad you asked that. First, I was held hostage to the adrenaline addiction. And then because of my 13 years